أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون وبعد فيا إخوة الإيمان, my beloved brothers and sisters in Islam, we begin as we always like to do by expressing words of gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is the one who has created us, guides us, sustains us, forgives us, and allows us the opportunity to live on the planet for a period of time, and has provided guidance for us whilst we are here. For those who heed and follow, Allah has promised a great reward for us. And He has also warned us about the consequences of ignoring His guidance and trying to live lives in disobedience to Him, that there will also be consequences. My brothers and sisters, today I wanted to talk about something which I think is important. All of you may not share the same view, but what happens is that every time 9/11 rolls around, and Sunday will be 9/11, the 21st anniversary. That means our children, it's like a history for them. And so I want to talk to the young people, the teenagers and the 20-somethings, because for them 9/11 did not actually happen when they were able to process it. For many of the older folks, we were able to know America before 9/11 and we were able to know America after 9/11. And our kids will tell their children about pre-COVID and after COVID. What happened in 9/11 was the planes entered the Twin Towers of New York City and leveled them to the ground and killed over 3,000 people. This incident was one of the most horrific incidents that happened in the history of America on that soil. And then it was determined that Muslims were behind it. And so America turned, in order to find some way to respond to this, America turns its attention to the Muslim community in America. And as we grieved with America about this loss, because Muslims lost lives there too, we were also faced with the idea that we were accused of being part of the crime. And this created a huge problem for Muslims in our community. And so, among those things that happened to us, I want to mention 5 things which created a huge problem for us. And then I also want to mention 5 good things that happened from 9/11 for us as well. Hopefully we'll have enough time to go through that. I'll be very brief. So the first thing that happened was that prior to 9/11, I want you young people to know that we were an obscure community. Nobody bothered with us. We lived in our insulated bubble. We come to our masjids, nobody bothered us. Passing through immigration was like a mundane, boring event. Nobody bothered you. You know, the world changed completely, not only for Muslims, for everyone after this incident. And so after living our lives without anyone worrying about us, America suddenly shone a spotlight to the Muslim community. They wanted to know about us. Media showed up at the masjids. Scholars were being harassed. The media was constantly talking about Islam and different things, and not in a very good way. And so from the very beginning, we were thrown into this spotlight now where our whole lives was under a microscope. And it made us feel very difficult because we were being depicted not as the good guys, but as the bad guys. The second thing that happened was that the way Muslims got treated, in America you were considered innocent until proven guilty. We began to be looked at as guilty and have to prove our innocence. We had to spend millions of dollars with lawyer fees to prove that you were innocent because you were looked at as a guilty person. The third thing that happened was that our patriotism to America was questioned. Muslims have for centuries been soldiers, lawyers, doctors, engineers, teachers in this society. We've been loyal citizens and patriots. We loved America, that's why we came here to live and to raise our families. And then this was being questioned by people who began to look at us as unwanted enemies. And that was very difficult for Muslims as well. And then persecution came in all kinds of forms. Mass arrest of innocent Muslims, killing of Muslims in places all over the country, burning down of our masjids, almost 29 masjids or more was burnt down, harassing, discrimination, racism, bullying, all kinds of persecution began to happen to the Muslims. Pastors were taking our Quran and lighting them a fire or shoving them down a toilet. The disrespect that was meted out to Muslims for no reason, because none of the Muslims who this was happening to had anything to do with that incident. So we began to be treated as a pariah, as a problem in the society. And this made it very difficult for Muslims to navigate. And everywhere we went, employers suddenly dismissed their Muslim employees. And all of this happened whilst the Muslim community was trying to grapple with what is going on. Our whole life has been turned around. And then Islamophobia arrived. A phobia is like a mental, it's an anxiety disorder. And it refers to an illogical fear, an unfounded fear of something or some object that has not basis in fact. And Islamophobia is the fear of Islam. That you're scared of Muslims and you're scared of Islam without any real basis in fact. And so Americans who didn't quite know us, 60% of Americans say they've never met a Muslim. So for them, we were a strange bunch, and then to be depicted in this manner, America became terrified of us. 25% of our neighbors said they are terrified of their neighbors, their Muslim neighbors. 33% of the people on a plane says when they see a Muslim stand up, they become scared. And Islamophobia is fueled and funneled by millions of dollars with people who have an agenda to get people to hate Islam. And so all of this happened. And we need to let the young people know that the world was not like this before, 21 years ago. There was a very different world. And so they need to understand the history of how and why we've been treated like this. We belong to a religion that is the most peaceful religion on earth. The very name, the very word Islam is peace. There's no other faith that advocates more for justice, peace, love, kindness, sharing, caring than the Muslims. How is it that Shaitan has managed to convince the world to have an agenda to treat us like the worst of the worst? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a wisdom behind what He does. And so when we reflect 21 years from that, now we're sitting here in this environment, we can see some of the beautiful things that has happened as a result of this to the Muslim community. First of all, when the incident happened, American intelligence, the intelligent people of America, the smart people, they found themselves in a very strange place. They didn't know anything about Islam and Muslims. They never had the intellectual curiosity to find out about the fate of 1 billion Muslims on the face of the earth. It wasn't part of what they needed. Suddenly they realized, we've got to find out about this religion, about these people, who they are. And so they began, the internet blew up. Quran flew off the shelves of bookstores as non-Muslims sought to try to get caught up with who these people are. Before we were just depicted as, you know, a villain in a movie in Hollywood with 10 wives and being all Arabs. Now they started to find out, what is Islam? What is it about? And that became a worldwide phenomenon. Islam, from being an obscure word, now became a household word. Our heart, in every place on the globe, people were scrambling to find out who these Muslims are and what do they believe in. And despite the negative lies and misconstruing of Islam, some of those people who tried to find out became excited and saw the truth of Islam. And so what we had actually is an increase in converts to Islam. People began to accept Islam. Women especially began to convert en masse. And because of that incident, today, Islam is the fastest growing religion on the planet. The most popular name in England for babies is Muhammad, the number one. Everywhere you go, people are accepting Islam. There are over 220,000 Spanish Muslims in America. Conversion is going on all over, in Mexico, in Cuba, in Haiti. Most people are accepting Islam in large numbers because they have suddenly found Islam. And so that is a positive thing that has happened. The third thing that has happened is that Muslims were forced to push back. All the arrest of innocent Muslims caused Muslims to organize. Civic groups like CARE and Muslim Welfare League and so many other political and civic groups of Muslims began to come up in order to help Muslims who were being harassed unnecessarily. And so Muslims were able to mobilize themselves and organize their resources to help America to live up to its values of freedom of religion in the country, because we were singled out for a different kind of rules and regulations as the authorities scrambled to grapple with this reality. And from America's point of view, it was understanding. Because if you have a people who become a threat to your society, you have to address it. And we understand that. But it didn't make it easy for us to be able to do that. So one of the beautiful things that come out, it forced our Muslims to become more civic-minded, to study the Constitution, to get involved in the political system and in every aspect of the society. Because we begin to realize we are citizens like everyone else, we have rights like everyone else, and we have to advocate for them like everyone else. And that's a good thing. The fourth thing that happens that is very good is that there's a word that they use, that young people use, it's called woke, being woke. It's an ancient word. Woke means you woke up, but woke in this context means to become aware, involved, and acutely conscious of any injustice, political, social, whatever it is. And so our young people have now become woke. They have become active socially. And the internet and the media, the technology has allowed us to do that. So you find our young people have now become aware and conscious and involved in every strata of trying to make changes. Whether it's climate change, whether it's justice, our ummah have become woke. And then also over the years, Muslims have slowly built alliances. We have met with law enforcement people. We have managed to let them know who we really are, peaceful people, that we are contributing members of the society. And so we have developed good relationships with law enforcement. In fact, a lot of the bad elements among us were reported by us to law enforcement, because we also don't want people who misrepresent our religion in our name by committing cruel acts of terror and whatever it is. For Islam is not about that. We have developed alliances with interfaith groups. We have developed alliances with professors in universities. We have developed alliances with so many civil rights groups. And so now among the people of America, Muslims have found sympathetic minds and hearts who have recognized that we were innocent all the time of these atrocities, because the Muslims were the first ones to condemn all of that. Muslim leaders immediately, Muslim countries immediately stood up and condemned that act. Muslim countries volunteered money and personnel to help America recover. So from the very beginning, we have always been very clear. But oftentimes the media don't show the voices of the Muslim leaders. When they interview a Muslim, who do you find? They find the most radical, silly Muslim and put him in TV to be interviewed. You don't see our scholars up there being interviewed to give correct perspectives. And so I want our young people to know that you are in this place because of this incident. And it's important to know that many wonderful things have happened. To the Muslim community at large, there are now two main responsibilities that we have, that we cannot shirk. you may have before 9/11, we can no longer do it. And the first is that we can no longer become a spectator. We've got to become a participant. Because every one of us is seen as a representative of Muslims in America. One don't just say, well, this is Alan, this is Khalid, this is... When we do something, it is looked at as we are representing the whole of America. And so each of us have to understand that as a Muslim, I have got to represent. I've got to learn my religion properly, and I've got to practice it well. That's the only way we will change and turn the tides of misunderstanding, misinformation. They have found this. Those who hated Muslims, they said when they actually met a live Muslim, their opinions changed. The statistic went down by 10% of those who hated Muslims until they met a live Muslim. And then they said, you're nothing like what we read about. And since 62% of America never met one of us, they always find it, wow, you are actually nice people. You're decent, kind, generous people. We were taught different. We were taught to be afraid of you. And so we have got to understand that each one of us now are an ambassador for our faith. So young people, learn your religion properly and practice it well. For you are the face of our faith. And the second thing is, all of us must connect to our local community. You can no longer stand isolated and be just a consumer. You just come at Jumu'ah, sit down on the mats, complain if you see a piece of dirt on it, and then you leave and you make no contribution to the masjid. You don't volunteer your skills and talents. You don't spend a dime. You don't connect. You have a transactional relationship with the masjid. I just come, use it, go. So many of our community, they only reach the imam if they have a janazah or a wedding. Then suddenly the imam becomes the most important person in their life. They're hounding the imam because I want to get married. We've got to have a more connected relationship with our community. Each one of us can play some role. If you're a carpenter, you're an accountant, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, come to the community that you are going to and say to them, these are my skill sets. I can volunteer an hour a week. Tell me what you need from me. We have people in our community, they will give yearly, some will contribute monthly, some will contribute weekly. In my masjid, there's a brother who shows up 2 weeks before Ramadan, and he says, how much water do you need for Ramadan? And he provides all the water for Ramadan. Crates and crates of it. And after Ramadan, we never see him again. I'm not even sure he shows up for Eid Day. But every year you could count on him. He will show up 2 weeks before Ramadan, and he will deliver any amount of water you want in whatever timeline you give him. That's his project. That's his contribution. We write him a letter, we acknowledge him, and we say, thanks, brother. We appreciate it. We're not going to go to him and ask him to pray salah and to try to... That's not his project. His project, this is what I'm giving to the community. We thank him. Each of us have something to give. Don't allow yourself to be an isolated Muslim, for shaitan will be a companion. الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا كثيرا طيبا مبارك فيه ونشهد ان لا اله الا الله وحده ونشهد ان محمدا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وبعد ربنا اتنا في الدنيا حسنه وفي الاخره حسنه وقنا عذاب النار ان الله يامر بالعدل والاحسان وايتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون واذكروا الله يذكركم واقيموا الصلاه